Hey guys, welcome back to the shop. It is December 30th, 2016. I had made you guys a video last night on installing a 120 volt outlet, new construction installation, and I was uploading it on my computer and realized that I had filmed most of it in slow motion. So I don't know how the heck I did that, rookie mistake, but I still want to get you guys that video. I'm going to figure out how to do that. The last couple sockets that I have to install here are up in the ceiling, so I'll figure out a way to rig up my phone so that you guys can see that as we install it. So I figured today what we'll do is we'll start on the bench installation for the shop. When I built this shop back in 2010, I made the shop 22 feet wide by 24 feet deep, and it's got a 6-inch block wall around the edge of it. So what that means is I've reduced my interior dimension to 21 feet. What I want to do is I want the bench to span the entire back wall, leaving enough room on the one edge for my air compressor. So I've decided I want my bench to be 18 feet wide from edge to wall, and I'm going to do it out of 2x6 construction because I want the bench to be completely strong. I have other videos in mind that I'd like to do in a future date that would require me to have a bench that's pretty strong, because what I'm going to put on there is going to be pretty heavy. So I'm going to do it out of 2x6 construction, and the plan was to build it much like you would do building a deck. I'm going to put a header on the back wall. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to build the bench itself separately. Then I can screw that right to the wall. It's going to have 4x4 legs on it, as well as there will be a shelf on the bottom of the bench that I can store whatever underneath there, whatever junk I've got. But what I want to do in the center of the bench, in the middle of the wall at 10.5 feet, is I want to build a recess in the bench. And the reason I want to do that is I want to set my miter saw inside there, and I want the deck of the miter saw to be flush with the bench top. And that's just going to give me a lot of room to be able to set material on, whatever I'm cutting, trim, wood, you name it. A lot of room on either side of the bench to set that material to make those cuts. So let's get started, and I hope you guys enjoy. Alright guys, so I'm at the back wall of my shop, and I want my bench to be 42 inches off the ground so that it'll be just below the outlets on the back wall. So the wall is completely finished, sheetrocked and painted, so it's difficult to tell where the studs are in the wall. So the easiest way you can do this is with a stud finder, and I happen to have one here, and this one that I have here marks out where the stud location is and the width of the stud, and I can just draw the center of that and know that I'm on the center of my stud. So what if you don't have a stud finder? Well, you can still find the studs in the wall with something that everybody has in their kitchen. So go to your kitchens, grab the strongest magnet you have off the fridge, and the drywall screws or nails, whatever your contractor or whatever you use to put them in, is gonna be made of a ferrous material, which means a magnet will pick it up. So I happen to have a magnet here. So if you just go around where you think the stud location is, and there you go. So there, I've grabbed a screw in the wall with the magnet, so I can mark where that stud location is. Then just go straight up or down, find your next stud, or next screw, excuse me, and then you can use a straight edge, whatever that is, a piece of wood, a ruler, a level, whatever you have, and mark a straight line on the wall. What's nice about doing it this way is you know that the screw that's behind here is directly screwed into the stud. So you don't have any chances of missing the stud on either side. And more importantly, if there's any drop down cables in your wall, you're not going to drive a screw into that cable. However, what you have to be concerned about is if there's been cables that have been run horizontally in the wall behind the sheetrock. So it just takes a little bit of thinking on what screws you're going to use to do this, and you shouldn't have any problems, because if you drive a screw into a wire and you pierce the jackets and ground it, you obviously will pop that breaker and you'll have a terrible time trying to find it. So let's go through how we're going to determine what screws we're going to use for this wall. All right, so I'm back at the makeshift bench. So depending on the construction material that was used in your home or garage or whatever you built with, it's either a 2x4 construction or a 2x6 construction. And the code for, let's draw a joint or a stud here. The code is that the cable or wire runs directly through the center of the stud. So if you have a 2x6 stud, 6 inches is just the advertised width. The nominal measurement is only 5.5 inches, which means that this hole or this cable is about 2 3/4 inches back in the wood, plus the 1/2 inches of sheetrock that you have on there. So you're about 3 1/4 inches from the wall edge to the cable inside of a 2x6 stud. So for me, with a 2x6 stud that's 1.5 inches thick, plus the 3 1/4 inches of wall thickness, I've got about 4 3/4 inches from the stud that'll be at the front of the wall, or that joist that'll be at the front of the wall, to the cable. So if I put in a 3-inch screw, I'll have more than enough margin to the cable. Now, if you have a 2x4 construction, you need to be a little bit more concerned about that, because a 2x4, or the 4 inches, again, is the advertised width. It's only 3.5 inches thick. So you only have 1 3/4 inches of space here from the edge of the wall to the joist, or to, not the joist, excuse me, but the cable. So you want to make sure, again, that you have enough room, or that the screw that you're using is not going to pierce this cable. In 2x4 construction, there should be the galvanized nailing plates on the front of the joist to prevent you from putting a screw in there. But these are only galvanized steel. If you push hard enough, a screw will go right through it. So just take a minute here to think about that, and that the screw that you're using is not going to be screwed in too deep as that it's going to pierce a cable, because again, that will be very difficult to find later, and obviously to repair, to cut the wall open and repair that cable. It just makes a lot of work for you in the future. So again, just take a minute here and figure that out. All right, when you're buying your lumber, keep in mind that the advertised dimension of what you're buying, 2x4s, 2x6s, 4x4s, 2x10s, 2x12s, whatever it is not going to be the actual thickness of the material, or the actual dimensions of the material. In some cases and in some places, you can buy dimensional lumber that is exactly as advertised. So what I want to show you guys here, so I have some 2x4s and 2x6s. You can see on the 2x4s that they are only 3.5 inches wide by 1.5 inches thick. 2x6s, again, same thing, they're only 5.5 inches wide by 1.5 inches thick. And the same goes for the 4x4s I'll be using. Will be 3.5 by 3.5. So keep that in mind when you're doing the layout and the planning of your project, because those 1/2 inches can add up pretty quickly and things aren't going to fit together correctly. The other thing you want to keep in mind is the thickness of the blade that you're using to cut. The term or for the thickness of the blade is called the kerf. And on my saw, it tells me that the thickness or the kerf of my saw blade is 0.095 inches, a little bit less than 1/8 of an inch. So keep that in mind when you're making the cuts and cutting on the correct side of the blade. That way you're not adding up all of these little bits here that are going to make things not fit together as nicely as you want them to. So I'll get that header up on a wall and let you guys see what that looks like. All right, guys, I just wanted to show you again here. I got a 2x6 by 18 foot length. That's what the advertised thickness was when I bought it. And this guy here is 18 foot and just shy of 3/4 of an inch there. So keep that in mind when you're doing your layout before you're cutting so that everything fits together correctly. All right, guys, I got the header up. It's on the back wall there, screwed down to all the studs. So it should be quite strong. What I did want to show you is I did cut myself a little jig to set on the floor. An 18-foot piece of lumber was a little bit unwieldy to handle, so I put those on the floor just to set it up against the wall so I could start screwing it down. And then as you can see on the back here, I do have some room to my air compressor. So that'll finish it up for this video here. If you guys like what you see, like the video. Let me know what I can do better for you guys. These videos are for you. So again, we'll see you on the next video.